Can someone explain to me what is to be done about the problem that is black male youth? The problem that is black male youth aggression. Why do we have cases of black male youth terrorizing the women in their households, in their communities? Black male youths are brutalizing and killing their sisters, their girlfriends, their moms, their grandmothers. And before y'all get down in my comment section saying, oh, white people do it too, Asians do it too, Latinos do it too, I'm not talking about them. I am talking about black male youths and the violence that they perpetuate against other black people. So please, at what point in time are we going to correct the problem of aggression in black males at the earliest sight of it? There is a small window to correct aggressive behavior in children, and if you miss that window, you doom that child to a future of violence against themselves and others. Now, we know that your average black household is single mother led. These boys, they need masculine correction in their lives, and they need it immediately. They don't have enough of it, so they get out of order with the women around them. Naturally, their mothers, their grandmothers, the women around them can be hardly to blame. They can't stop these boys. These boys are getting grown, and they know that they have a physical advantage over the women around them. So before some of y'all get in my comment section talking about, well, she shouldn't have had a baby out of wedlock, and where's the daddy, and this is why we need dads, that's valid, but it's ultimately unproductive because these boys are grown now. She can't unbirth them. She can't force the dad to be there. We have to solve the problem at hand, and saying that is unproductive. Perfectly valid, but unproductive. Now, in order to help these boys, and by proximity, those around them, I think it comes in two parts. First is to catch the behavior very early and place at-risk boys in a group mentor program led by preferably men. And I think around like 8 to 9, maybe 10 years old is when you start to see this kind of aggressive behavior, pre-teens basically. And in this group mentor program, these boys who are at risk of becoming dangerous individuals later on, they are engaged by men with exercises like problem and conflict resolution skills, critical thinking skills, emotional regulation skills, all of these to help these boys not fall into destructive habits before it starts, as well as being taught things like philosophy and ethics. I think it's also important at a young age that boys learn those things, as well as other things that I just don't have the time to go into depth on here because I'm already past like the 3-minute mark. Now, two, for black male youths that have already begun destructive habits, so the ones who are already terrorizing their households, they're already being disrespectful to their moms, potentially violent towards their moms. Being verbally disrespectful is a precursor to violence. So when you're dealing with black male youths that are already cussing out the women around them, danger, it's coming. So the second would be to catch these boys who are already showing destructive habits but still have that little window of opportunity, putting them into a rehabilitation and correctional facility, not like a typical correctional facility where they're just thrown in jail and they rot and they're not actually being engaged, but an actual correctional detention center where they are engaged on their level by, again, preferably men, because that is what they're lacking in their lives. These boys are given deliberate but character building difficulty. It has been proven that boys do better when they deal with challenge, when they deal with difficulty. So something like physical difficulty that builds character, as well as mental difficulty that will also build character. Basically along the lines of a military academy, I think we need to bring those back. Necessary skill sets to help these boys avoid future malfeasance and recidivism. Again, it's been proven already that boys do better when they are challenged, when they are given deliberate but character building difficulty and struggle. Obviously, that's not very detailed, but again, I don't really have a lot of time to go into the complete details of like what I'm thinking in my head and how this type of correctional facility would look. But yeah, rather than sending these boys who are at high risk to a regular detention center where they're thrown in a cell and that is it, they should instead be sent to a different type of place, government contracted obviously, but this place would have a curriculum where these boys are engaged critically. They are given purposeful and deliberate challenge and difficulty, and they're engaged kind of along the lines of a military academy that is also college and career preparatory. This would be for black male youths or just boys in general in their teens to late teens, the ones who are at highest risk of becoming future perpetrators of violence and criminals. These boys need immediate correction before they grow up to be the next murderers in their communities that are already plaguing black communities today. Something has to give, and our current method of dealing with this is not sufficient enough. It's not actually doing anything because it's not actually critically engaging these boys the way they are needing to be engaged, the way that they're crying out to be engaged. It's part of the reason why I think we're seeing so much of this violence. These boys are crying out for some kind of leadership and stability. And then again, please, for those of you who want to get in my comment section talking about white people and systemic injustice and systems of oppression, I'm going to block you too, because these conversations are tired and they are getting no results. I just think we need to get back to basics, like pre-Great Society Act basics, where we weren't having these problems. And if you are also a Black pessimist, a cynic, or nihilist, don't get in my comment section either telling me that we've tried this already and it won't work. Being a cynic is not productive either. I'll block you too. You cannot change my mind that the reason why we are seeing such a rise in violent aggression from Black male youth is because of the lack of fathers in their homes. I vehemently believe that it's because of the lack of masculine leadership in their homes, as well as strong, healthy, productive masculine figures in their communities that they can model themselves after. And I'm specifically sort of zeroing in on the Black community because I'm Black, but this can apply to other demographics as well. I also firmly believe that the exodus of Black Americans from the church is directly related to the rise of Black male aggression. When you take into consideration that Black males were more active in their communities when they were in church, were more likely to be married and active in their households when they were in church. It is not so surprising to me that now that Black males, by and large, no longer visit church or biblical study, that we are seeing malfeasance, opposition to marriage and family, and destructive behavior among these males. By destructive behavior, I mean serious, egregious violence against specifically women in their communities. These boys have no purpose, they have no leadership, they have no identity, no autonomy, no cause to be better for. Nothing that they need to be better for. So they turn their frustration and resentment for their lack of personal autonomy and identity on their own communities, because where else are they going to put it? That's why I think conversations like, systemic oppression and systems of, oppression and historical abuses, I get all of that, but really, I think it really boils down to the fact that these boys feel like they have no purpose. And when you have nobody that you need to care for, nobody that you need to protect, what does it matter if you're being violent? What does it matter if you're being destructive? I'm totally sympathetic to how these males have arrived to this condition if we're going to look at historical context, but it still can't be excused when Black males are brutalizing the women and children around them, when they're killing their sisters, their moms, their grandmothers. They're brutalizing the women and children around them. Bullying, harassing, and terrorizing members of their communities cannot be tolerated. It's unacceptable. Other avenues to dealing with their aggression has to be considered, because allowing them to stay in these communities they terrorize is not an option. Consider the work being done by people who believe white supremacy and systemic injustice is to blame. What has the work they've done changed? Black people in politically appointed and elected seats has risen by, I believe, 30% over the past 2 to 3 decades. The math is not there exactly. It's been a while since I've seen the statistic, but I believe 30% over the past few decades. And yet, the conditions in our communities have gotten worse. I don't know if that's even a word, but it's gotten worse. Now take, conversely, Black nationalists who didn't place an emphasis on critical social justice, but instead hyper-focused on intra-racial solutions to these issues. They had better results when they said the causes and effects are happening within our community, and that is where we're going to place our attention. They had better results than critical social justice warriors who place the causes and effects outside of our community. All of this is to say that making historical systems of oppression the cause for why we see this level of violence among Black males today is not always the case, and it's ultimately unproductive. We've been having that conversation over and over, and it's not getting any results, making that the focal point. Now, if we seriously want to engage with the causes and effects of why today, currently, we are seeing the contemporary issues we are, step number one is to leave these conversations regarding histories from 300 and 150 and 60 years ago at the door. Not permanently, but as for now, because those conversations, again, are tired. They aren't getting us any good results. They're not as productive as we believe they are in our heads. You don't believe me? Again, look at the numbers of Black Americans in politically elected positions of power and what they've done in the communities. Pretty much nothing. And what do they hyper-focus on when they're getting into office? Systems of oppression, white supremacy. Then they get in the office. No work is being done. These conversations, I believe, have their time and place. I think they are necessary when they're necessary, but when it comes to dealing with contemporary issues like Black male youth aggression, I'm not too sure what talking about white supremacy from 100 years ago is supposed to do to help solve the issue today.